From brush-busting 4570s to long-range magnums, here's how to pick the right elk round for your terrain. So buckle up. Hi everybody, welcome to LocaCarnivore. Glad you could join us. Hey, elk hunting is not one size fits all. In thick timber, you need power and handling. And out in open country, it's all about reach and precision. Today we're going to break down the best elk round for each. And we're going to show you why terrain should shape your choice. So stay with us to the end of the video. We're going to break this down into each section, and by the end of the video you'll know exactly how to pick the right elk round for where you're hunting. Alrighty then, let's dive in. Let's talk about hunting those wapiti in the thick stuff, in that heavy timber. And if you've ever hunted in western Montana or northern Idaho, and nowadays they have elk in a lot of states back east too, where it's really thick and deep, and you know what I'm talking about if you're over there. So finding these big beasts in that kind of stuff, it's really difficult to begin with. And if you do happen to find one, they're not likely to give you a very long time to line up that perfect shot and take them down. So what do we need for cartridges? What do we need for rifles in this type of terrain? Well, first of all, keep in mind what our ranges are going to be. Most likely, you're going to be shooting inside 100 yards. You might even be shooting almost at arm's length. It's amazing how these creatures can just appear out of nowhere. The Native Americans used to call them the ghost of the forest, and rightly so. Now you see them and now you don't. And when you do see them, you're probably going to see them through this narrow little itty-bitty lane between some trees or something, and you're going to just have to snake that shot through. And there might be a little bit of branches or some cover or something like that, even tall grass, whatever, between you and that target zone on that elk. So you're going to need something that bucks the brush just a little bit as well. However, unlike hunting deer in this kind of country, it's not a place where you really want something like a 30-30 or something like that, which is a traditional brush carbine caliber for hunting deer in the thick stuff. We need a lot more power with elk. I mean, let's face it, elk are, 400 to 500 pounds typically. For cows, the big bulls, they can run 700-800 pounds. There's even been larger specimens found here and there. So you're talking about a really large animal. It's almost the size of a horse. A lot of thick muscle, and the shot that you might get is probably not going to be optimal. You might have that guy quartering to you, and you're facing that big shoulder with that big bone in there, that big humerus bone they have, and that heavy joint with all that connective tissue and the cartilage and the tendons and everything, and then a ton of muscle. And then after you get through that, you still have to go through at least a lung or two, hopefully, maybe a heart, whatever it might be, or you might have a quartering away shot where you have to drive that round through a certain amount of stuff that's in his gut. All that grass and everything he's been munching on all day and all night, and you got to get through that. So that's like trying to shoot through imagine a big bag of wet grass clippings, and that's what you essentially have. So you got to get through that before, again, you can get to those vital organs and take him down and take him out. And on that frontal shot too, on that front shoulder shot, if that's all you've got, you might want to be able to break that bone too, so even if you don't get him completely discombobulated on that one round, he's not going to be able to run off very far. And elk, trust me, they can run a long way in a short amount of time. I've seen them do it, and it's just amazing how far they can go, even when they're shot righteous. And they should just drop down right where they are. They don't. They really like to get you back for having shot them. Well, if we have established the fact that we need more than just a light 30-30, but we need a good handling, quick handling gun as well, what are good cartridges and what type of guns do we want in the timber? Well, let's rattle off a few. First of all, the 4570 Government, that's just a fantastic cartridge. And if you can get it in the higher loaded, the Magnum, 4570 Magnum, if you will, loads that are out there on the market that are hotter than the old school load, the original load from 1873, which was a black powder round, that's even better for you. However, you're going to get a lot of recoil, I'll warn you. Now, if you're running this thing in a lever action gun, which most 4570s typically are lever guns, you're going to need a good, strong, modern action. Think Marlin 1895 or something along those lines, a Henry Big Boy, something that can handle that extra power. Don't go out there with great-granddad's 1894 Winchester or something like that and put these big loads in it. You don't want that. Your results will not be pleasant, or might not be pleasant for you. So you got to be careful and choose a gun that's capable of handling these rounds. Now, What if you do have great-great-grandpappy's old 1894 or something like that that's not ready for these big heavy loads? You can still get the traditional 45-70 load. Remember, the U.S. Cavalry developed that load because they needed a load that would drop a horse with one shot. And they actually tested this on poor horses, and they found it's actually very good at that inside 100 yards. It will definitely, if properly placed, and placement is always king, you know that, and I know that, but properly placed, that 45-70, even in the old school loading, it's got that big, heavy, slow bullet, and boy, it just keeps going, and it just bores its way through whatever gets in its way, and it just makes a big wound channel, and down goes Mr. Wapiti right into the dirt for a big, long, permanent nap. Now, does this mean that you need to go out if you don't have a 45-70 lever gun and get one just because you're going on an elk hunt in the timber? No, by no means. You do not need to do that. There are other rounds and other types of guns that will work just as well. For instance, a really good choice is that all-around Swiss Army knife cartridge, the 30-06. 30-06 has dropped a lot of Wapiti over the decades, and it's still going strong. The main thing on the 30-06, though, I would go with the heavier bullets, at least a 180. I'd like to see it with a 200 grain, and you might even think about one of those 220s or even a Woodley 250 grain. Those are awesome because those are designed to take down grizzly bears and dangerous game. So you can imagine they've got the penetration you're going to need if you've got that. You only got that one shot, the light's fading fast, you got to make a decision, and you need to have the confidence that you can put that bullet all the way through that Wapiti and get him on the ground where he belongs and then into your freezer. So don't worry about if you have a 30-06. Again, you're probably going to be in a bolt gun, but you could get a Browning lever action. Those are capable of handling pointed Spitzer type bullets in 30-06, and they are chambered in 30-06. You could get a pump gun like one of the old Remingtons, it's the 760 and the 7600. If there were other pump guns in 30-06, go down in the comments, let me know about that too. And you can do this with a bolt gun. It's not a problem. I would get a little bit of practice in so you can, work that action very quickly and smoothly and get yourself a smooth running gun. Anything with a proper Mauser 98 type action with controlled round feed that's been really slicked up and has been really worn in, broken in, really nice, that's probably your best choice for this kind of work. Now, keeping in mind that we need big, heavy bullets that make wide wound channels, typically that's what works best in this kind of environment and can buck a little bit of brush if it has to. 35 Wheeling, oh boy, is that a good classic cartridge. There's not a lot of rifles that are made for it anymore, but you can still find it. Lever guns are made in it, there's bolt guns, there's lots of stuff. If you look around, yeah, you might have to get a used gun, but that 35 Whelen, it is just such an outstanding cartridge. And 35 caliber bullets, I don't know what it is, but they just have the mojo. They just penetrate like crazy. So that's a really good choice for you. Another one I would recommend would be the 375 Holland & Holland, the 375 H&H. That's a fantastic cartridge. And I would go with the 300 grain bullets. You could go lighter, even a 260 or 270 grain, that's fine for elk. But boy, if you really want to anchor them and get that penetration, nothing like that 300 grain. And if you want to step up to a 350 Woodley, I'm not going to argue with you. Also a really good round. Yeah, it's going to be in a bolt gun, but if you can find a double rifle that you can afford, that would be the bomb in the close stuff. That's the fastest follow-up shot you're going to ever find in the gun world, is a good double with 2 triggers. And it's reliable as heck. Yeah, they're a touch on the heavy side, but boy, if you need that fast follow-up shot, there's nothing finer, and those guns just point so instinctively that if you've got a quick snapshot, you've only got a millisecond to get on that critter and put him down, there's your choice. If you can find it, and if you can afford it, I'd do a double in 375 H&H. And one other cartridge that is out there, it's not too common in the United States, but if you can get a hold of it, you're going to have a heck of a close-in Wapiti dropper, and that's the 9.3 by 62 Mauser. That is just a wonderful cartridge. In fact, in Africa, that's used in lieu of a 375 or even a 416. That is a really good cartridge, and it's built on a standard length action. You don't need a magnum length action like with the 375 H&H. Now, how are you going to set this rifle up? Well, frankly, if your eyes will tolerate it, I wouldn't mind going with open sights, especially on the lever gun or a double like that. Just make sure you've got a really nice, the front bead is either a bright white or a gold bead, so it'll show up against that dark body of that critter. And that, open sights at these ranges, perfectly acceptable. However, red dots, I'm really big about red dots on these guns. And nowadays, you can even get a double rifle set up for a red dot or a low power scope. So you could go with the LPVO, the low power variable optic, which is so popular on tactical rifles these days. It's not just for tactical stuff, folks. You can put one of these on your bolt gun or on your lever gun, and that way you've got, you can dial it down to like 1 power, which is fantastic for quick engaging. And if the regulations where you're hunting allow it, an illuminated reticle in one of these things, or again with the red dot, fantastic in low light. Well, that's hunting in the timber. Now what about if you're out in the open somewhere? And there's a lot of elk country that is big and wide and open. And the other thing is you might have some patches of thick stuff, but then you might have large clear cuts that are 300, 400, 500 yards across, and it never fails. Where's the elk going to be? On the other side of that clear cut. So it's not a bad idea to have something in your hands that can reach out and touch Mr. Wapiti. So let's talk about hunting in that open country there. Now, for open country, we need reach. We need a flat shooting cartridge that delivers a good amount of power on target at that longer range, at that extended range. Here's my little rule of thumb. For elk, I don't like anything less than 1,500 foot-pounds of energy at impact when it hits Mr. Wapiti. I want at least 1,500, and there's a lot of experts out there that'll say 2,000 foot-pounds is even better. Frankly, I don't think you can put enough power into an elk. The concept doesn't exist. So as much power as you can get, but make sure you've calculated it so it's at the range you intend to shoot at. So that kind of puts us into the magnums for the most part, and 30 caliber at least, although we're going to talk about a few other cartridges. But we need a magnum. We need a good amount of velocity, so we need something that shoots really flat, or as flat as we can get, and also has good resistance to wind drift. It's long range shooting, folks. So just bring your A game and bring your A game equipment, and you should be pretty good. So let's run down a few cartridges for you. Now, before I go through the laundry list here, just a quick reminder, give us a big like on this video, help us out. We want you on the LocaCarnivore team, so please subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell. That way you won't miss any of our videos. Plus, we also have a Patreon. We'd appreciate your support. Links in the description. And if you want more content, you can go, and also a chance to get some of our groovy LocaCarnivore merchandise, go over to our website, LocaCarnivore.com. Check that out as well. Again, link will be down in the description. Let's get rolling here on cartridges for elk in the open stuff, in the country, in the rolling country, or out in the forest where it's patchy and then it's not patchy. And if you've been there, if you've hunted Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, eastern part of Montana, Wyoming, any of these places, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, you know exactly what I'm talking about as far as you have to reach out there. It's not uncommon to take a 400, 500, 600 yard shot. Now, having said all that about how much range you might have to deal with, keep in mind your own limitations and what you're capable of. Don't worry about so much about having a whole bunch of power. You need enough, but make sure it's power that you can control. It's being shot out of a rifle that you are proficient with, and don't go beyond your range limitations. If you're a dead shot at 400 yards, but you know things get sketchy at 600, don't take that 600 yard shot. Figure out a way to get closer, or you're going to have to find a different animal. Make sure you do this right, because an elk is too big and too wonderful and too proud of an animal to not do it right. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you can actually hit out there at 1,000 yards, we're going to talk about cartridges that'll actually do the job for you. Now, my first favorite, and frankly I think it's probably the best all-around choice for this job, is the 300 Winchester Magnum. Yes, you can get all sorts of other 30 caliber magnums. There's the the Remington Ultra Mags, there's all the Weatherbees, and I hear the Weatherby folks going, "Woo! You said Weatherby!" And just good luck finding the ammo, or get used to loading your own. These cartridges are quite fine. And that's not to put any shade on the 338 Winchester Magnum either. However, the 338, as marvelous an elk cartridge it is, the ammo is getting a lot harder to find. There's not a lot of rifles being chambered for it anymore, unfortunately. And it's going to beat the holy heck out of you at the shoulder. It really will. And the 300 Win Mag will do pretty close to the same job as the 338, but for a little bit less recoil. It's a little more polite. Yeah, you'll know you shot it, but you won't need a chiropractor and a bag of ice on your shoulder for after you've shot one round of it. Let's put it that way. And the 300 Win Mag, with a properly constructed bullet and fired by a competent shooter out of good equipment, is a genuine 1,000 yard elk killer. It will get that job done. Personally, I don't think you need to go much farther up the recoil scale to get this kind of performance. Hey, real quick, I just wanted to encourage everybody to share this video And the reason is YouTube is playing games again with gun and hunting related content. So if you want to continue to see hunting and gun related content on YouTube, it's up to you to put legs on all these videos. Share mine, share everybody else's that you watch if you like them, and just make it grow legs so that YouTube can't ignore us. It's up to you, remember. And you just heard my opinion about the 30 caliber magnums being ideal for this job. Let's talk about another type of caliber though, the 7mm. The 7s are pretty special stuff. Frankly, if I didn't already own a 300 Win Mag, I'd seriously consider one of the heavy 7s. And for this job, yeah, you can go, like I said, you can go to the Ultra Magnums and blah, 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 blah. But frankly, I like two particular 7mm. I like the tried and true 7mm Remington Magnum. That has dropped a ton of elk over the decades since it came out in, what, 1963 or so, thereabouts. Fantastic cartridge. I've seen it work wonders. It is such an efficient cartridge. It's a little more efficient ballistically than a 30 caliber, and you'll get a touch less recoil because the bullets are a little bit lighter. And nowadays there's just a huge choice of 7mm long range bullets, so something to think about. Now if you don't have or want a 7 Rem Mag, another good choice and super accurate cartridge would be the new 7 PRC, the 7mm precision rifle cartridge that Hornady came out with a little while ago. That would be one of my favorite choices, frankly. It gets you away from the belt and all that. And if you're a hand loader, that PRC I think is probably going to be a little more kind to you than that 7mm Rem Mag. Not that the 7 Rem Mag is not accurate, it's renowned for accuracy, but that PRC, that brings it in just a little bit tighter for you on your group size. And when you're shooting at these ranges, you can't get enough accuracy as well as enough power. And the 7s deliver. They have the power. In fact, I always refer to something that a old hunting buddy, somebody who actually showed me how to hunt, once told me about the 7mm. He said, he looked at me in the eye after he dropped a muley with one, and he said, the 7mm is a vicious weapon. And I couldn't agree more. So it's a really good choice for you. Nowadays we have yet another alternative other than the 30 caliber and the 7mm type cartridges for elk. And that's the 6.5mm, the 26 calibers. They are a really good choice these days. Now, you Creedmoor people, you're not going to like what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. If you want to hunt an elk with a 6.5 Creedmoor, keep your shots inside 300 yards. That's all I'm going to say about it. Yeah, there's people out there, you can see them on the internet all the time, dropping them at insane ranges, but for most hunters, just keep it inside 300 yards and you'll be happy, and Mr. Wapiti won't run away and die in another canyon somewhere where you'll never find him. So remember, the idea is to take the thing home, put it in the freezer, right? All right, having said that and thrown a lot of shade on the 6.5 Creedmoor, oh, here comes the cry fest from the 6.5 Creedmoor fanboys. Oh well, tough love, what can I say? So if I really am not big on the 6.5 Creed for elk duty, what would I pick? Simple, 6.5 PRC. Frankly, I think it's probably the best 6.5 going. Now there's the old 264 Winchester Magnum. It eats barrels for lunch, breakfast, and dinner, but if you really want to use that, go ahead. I mean, it is a proven elk getter. It will do the job, but the PRC is going to be a lot kinder on your barrels. It's got less recoil, but it still has definitely enough juice on it to anchor a wapiti out at the 500-600 yard mark easily. And those efficient, super highly penetrative 6.5mm bullets are wonders. They will buck the wind, and they will definitely shoot flat and straight for you. And when they get there, they don't make as quite as wide a wound channel as the 30 calibers, or certainly a 338 would. And that's kind of where that's like 6.5s. Trust me, I like them, but I'm always a little bit. I use some caution with 6.5 because they don't make as wide a wound channel even after they expand, because they're just simply starting at a smaller diameter. It's just simple physics. But they penetrate like crazy. So, and that's what you need on elk, is penetration. All right, let me give you one final alternative for your open country elk cartridge. And some of you are going to look at me and go, what is he smoking? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm right on this. I'm right. I'm really absolutely right. And I'm going to stick with my position on this. And that suggestion would be, well, not suggestion, it's a hard recommendation. 375 H&H, 375 Holland & Holland. And everybody's going, whoa, you just said that was the perfect cartridge for up close in the timber. Well, it is. It's a fantastic cartridge for that. But guess what? Unlike the 4570 and some of these others, the Wheelan and stuff, this thing can reach out and touch wapiti. It's a solid elk hitter out to at least 500 yards. 375 H&H is used in Africa all the time at those kind of ranges on heavy plains game like kudu and zebra and things like that. And that's about the size of an elk. And it is renowned for being able to drop critters at those ranges. So don't discount that 375 H&H. It's a really good choice. So there you go. You can scream all you want in the comments. Go ahead, I welcome it, but I'm not going to budge on that. One of my favorite cartridges. It always has been and it always will be. And I can't say enough about it when it comes to using it on elk. Well, the next question then is, how do we set up our open country elk gun? Well, since the fact is most of these guns, most of these cartridges I mentioned are only going to be in bolt actions, you're going to be using the bolt action for the most part. Now you could have one of these nice ultralight guns, but I would be cautious about, let's put it this way, if you've got a really light like a mountain gun or something, 6.5 PRC I think would be my best choice for matching that cartridge to that level of gun, that weight of gun. Anything beyond that, and they're made, but boy I tell you, I wouldn't want to touch them off, frankly. If you're in any of the magnums, you're going to want at least an 8 to 9 pound gun, and that's, you know, scoped and everything at a minimum. My 300 weighs with the scope right about 8.5 pounds, and it's fine. I can lug it around all day. I don't get tired with it, and it's got enough weight, though it will generally take care of the recoil issues as long as I'm hanging onto the gun properly. If you're just sitting there with one finger on the trigger and it's out there on the bipod and you got your little squeeze bag and you go bang like that, yeah, you're going to get a scope through the head. But just hang on to the gun, okay? If you got to shoot that way, you're going to need a lighter cartridge. And again, on elk, frankly, I wouldn't drop below 6.5 PRC. I'd really want to be in there. Now, if you got a standard bolt gun, like I said, you know, the world's your oyster. You can use any of the cartridges I just mentioned. 375 H&H, the only downside to it is the fact you're going to be in a heavy gun. The one that I have and hunt with, my old Winchester, that's I've never weighed it, but just, you know, if I had to say, it's probably about 10.5 pounds. It's a lot of gun to lug around, especially in the tall country, in the mountains and stuff. So not my first choice, but it has the power if I need it. And if it was the only gun I had, and there was a time when it was the only gun I had, it'll definitely do the job. By the way, if you only can have one hunting gun, I did a video not too long ago on the top 5 cartridges, and I'll put the link to that down in the description, so you go check that out. I think you'll find that very useful. But like I said, what are we going to use? Let's go with standard long-range type optics. I would like a little bit of dial down on the power, though. Don't start at like a minimum of 6 or something. I would go with like no more on the bottom end than about 4 power, just in case you end up having to take a close shot. You never know where you're going to find an elk. It could be right in front of you, at arm's length practically. So you do need to be able to dial that down just a little bit on the power. On magnification, whatever works for you at the ranges you intend to shoot. I'd like to see probably at least 16 power in the 20s, somewhere in there for really far out, reaching out. And the nice thing about that type of power is you can dial that scope up real quick if you need to get really close in on that thing, and then you can back the power off a little bit for the actual shot. That'll give you a wider field of view so that you can see what's going on as you break the shot. And you know, if he takes a couple steps after you hit him, you can at least see which direction he started off on. So something to think about there. Illuminated reticle, if you can do it, if you're legally able to do it where you're hunting. And I would go with a mil dot reticle. Frankly, it's easier to do your ranging, and that way you don't have to whip out the laser rangefinder at the last second and try to figure out how far away is he. If you're familiar with using it, and just get familiar. It's not that hard to learn, and it's really great for a really quick range estimation, and you can figure it out. And it's really good if you get a nice reticle that has wind holds and all that. It's going to make that job of reaching out there at that 400, 600, 700 yard mark a lot easier for you. Now, if you've got just a standard duplex, fine. Just know how to use it, know what your subtensions are, and rock and roll with it. I'd also like to go with the first focal plane if you can. It's just going to make life a lot easier, especially if you're using the reticle to range. You're going to want that first focal plane. Can you do second focal plane? Absolutely. I've hunted elk with second focal planes most of my life, and I know plenty of other people that it's all they've ever used, and boy, they've got plenty of elk meat in the freezer every fall, so it's not a big problem. Just understand the equipment you have and understand its pluses and minuses, its strengths and its weaknesses, and play to the strengths. It's pretty simple about that. At the end of the day, choosing an elk cartridge isn't so much about power or ballistics or any of this sort of stuff. It's really about where you're going to hunt those elk. So you've got to decide, are you hunting in the thick stuff and up close, or are you going to hunt more open country? Now, like I said, there are places out in the world where you might have a shot that's at 20 yards, and you could have in that same day, you might end up having a shot that's at 600 yards. It just depends on the terrain and where you're at. So really, do you need maybe two different rifles for elk? Well, perhaps. Now, if you've got a hunt that's just going to be in heavy stuff, you take your close-in rifle. And I know people who do this. And if you know you're going out to someplace, I don't know, Missouri Breaks or someplace where it's usually very open, then you've got your long-range rifle, your long-range elk gun, and you take that with you. But you could also just have one gun, and then you're going to need a do-it-all cartridge. So my basic rule of thumb is any of these longer range cartridges generally will still do the job at close range with the right bullet. Make sure you've got a bullet that's going to hold up under high velocity impact at close range. Don't use one of these, highly frangible long range only bullets. Make sure you got a versatile bullet in there and a versatile cartridge. 300 Win Mag, 375 H&H, 30-06. Those three will get the job done practically no matter where you are. Hey, what's your number one go-to elk cartridge? Let us know. Go down in the comments there and let us know. I know I stepped on somebody's toes. It's inevitable. I can't mention every cartridge on the planet. But if you've got a particular favorite and you want to tell us why, I'll listen to you. So go down there and comment. And we really appreciate you spending your time with us today. And I'm going to leave you with one quick thing. As always, don't forget, you know it, Han shot first. Thanks for watching.
Ha ha